All right, all right. Greetings, one and all. Chris Courtney here, New Pragmatic. It has been a very distracted morning here. Um, Everything happening in the world is on fire. Let's just say that the world is on fire. But the great news is when the world is on fire, it is always nice and cozy in here because we're just talking about design. Uh, no stock tips here, nor do I have any guidance on how to wear a mask. Okay, just stay away from people, lots of hand sanitizer. That's about as much as I can do for you. But I can talk about fonts, I can talk about colors, I can talk about interface design, and that's what we got a lot of today. Eve submitted her color for accessibility work this morning or last night. Like it was pretty late. Also, we have work submitted from Tegel. Rebecca's jumping in here, and really been trying to do some research this morning to make sure I'm up to date on everything. Been writing a lot. There's been quite a bit of writing I've been doing on giving proper feedback, not just feedback here, but giving proper feedback to the user. Looks like Rebecca's submitting a number of things in off to the side. So I've got my monitor. I've got multiple monitors, and I keep seeing like little blinking lights over here in the right. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump in and let's see if we can get this started. I'm gonna start here with Eve. Eve was submitted this last night, and basically she is working through. By the way, this is Figma. I've just got my tools hidden here. Eve has submitted her work in for color at work. And I misspoke. She did the accessibility stuff last week. Here she's identifying really what the what colors are being utilized inside of the scheme. And here, this is a site. It's Micro Acquire is the name of the site, which is I really don't like their logo very much, but I do like the scheme. And the real key here is we're talking about interface design. What's the dominant color when it comes to the action? Like what's the action? And really maybe the right term here is what color is being used for action, to interact, to draw us in and say, when we see it, we're like, okay, that's the thing that we're supposed to be clicking on. And here, there's a lot of other colors going on. I think a color that you could have had in here was this lighter blue, but it really is a derivative of this dark blue, and you can see this dark blue kind of pops up here and there. But when you are working through here, the action color is really this dark blue, almost black, and you'll see it in a couple of spots. So that's why action color is probably a better term here. There are supporting colors here, but they're not. The other colors are not interface. They're more decoration. They're more branding. The color here that's really the focal point for action is this really dark blue. If we come over and we begin looking at the Dorsia site, really, this is like a two-tone, three-tone thing, where the red tones are really what jump out. And it's kind of interesting the way they're used, because it's not like you could click on all these things and illuminate new things, new elements in the design. But when you look at like the elements that you can click on, which all these little icons, this box here, those are the elements that are actually actionable in the design. So it kind of mixes it up. You can see like the drop down for our cities has that same color. I do believe you can click on any of these three, and it acts as navigation. So complementary. I think that's basically right, except for the green is just really washed out. And the red honestly is washed out as well. It's really more of a pastel. They're using the brighter reds to kind of give it a little bit of a pop, but overall I think you're right. And over here you had triadic, and I think that's right as well. But the triadic part is really the supporting, like, marketing. The dominant color here, the action color, is kind of off on its own. If we come over here and we look at brand new, now she avoided the pitfall of this one in that this red is really part of an ad. All right. So when we talk about navigation colors, the navigation colors that are present here are the greens, the blues, the yellows, the purples. And I got to be honest with you, I'm not quite sure why you would be marking the dominant as the purple, because I don't see a lot of the purple here. All of these are a particular type of link. I would say that if anything, it feels more like the green. The green is the green and the blue are almost pretty equal. And when we talk about analogous colors, we're typically talking about colors that operate together, and I don't see these as being close enough to be analogous. I really think this is more of a quad, because you've got the purple in there too. But overall, I do think that, like, from a colors that are being used, it's really, I don't see the purple. It's just right there. It's just not. And maybe this is a situation where you kind of were selecting the colors and you were going to go back later. Although, upon closer inspection, I do see this, which kind of was flying under the radar, to be honest with you. When you're looking at this site, that does not jump out as a thing that would be drawing a lot of attention. So there's a little bit more of an argument for the purple, but overall I just don't see that purple being utilized much of anywhere. It's almost at the yellow level, and you can see how yellow is, link. So I think an argument. I think an argument could be made to, if it's as much purple, it's just equally as much yellow. So what I really feel here is we have 4 colors that are being used, and if there is an overarching color that's really at play here, it's this gray. This gray is being utilized as, like, the background, and it comes back into play down here. So there's definitely some action colors being used here, but I don't think the purple is really as dominant as it might appear. I don't think you can swing it to that just on those 2 alone, particularly when you've got these links over here to this side and the yellow. Let's move over here. Now, this is pretty straightforward, but what I love about the caffeine site is that it says, you know what, we're gonna make the action color, that green. We're also going to use it in the branding. We're going to use it in the illustrations. We're not going to use anything else. This is very monochromatic, as you've noted. Now this dark color is a bit of a blue. I mean, there's a little blue in there, but it's so dark. I don't really see it as being a second color. It's more of an alternative to black, rather than it being a color all to itself. I gotta check this over here. I've got a number of messages popping in. Okay. I'll check that out, Rebecca. Just want to keep keep pushing along here. So yeah, anyway, with caffeine, this is really like heavily leveraging the green, except for or heavily leveraging the green. The only place that they do a flip here, and I don't really agree with their usage, is they turn that start your application button blue, or the dark blue black alternative down here, where it could have just been in white. I think this in white would have been fine. And then when you hovered on it, it gives you some sort of hover state. And we're going to talk about, I'm sure in the coming feedback loops, we're going to be talking about state, because there are going to be people moving into that series of feedback exercises. But overall, I think you've definitely nailed this one. It's probably the easier of the bunch. And here, in fairness, Eve and I had a conversation about this page. The dominant action color, the color that we're really drawn to, like, you're not hovering on any of these images and saying, click, I'm going to use that. It doesn't take you to that photo, but it is this browse photos purple. And it's very consistent in the usage as you go down. Browse photo, notify me. They're very consistent in that. Again, analogous. When we look at analogous as a color scheme, and I'm going to go specifically to that. If I can find my, here we go. We'll just go to interface, and we'll go down here to color at work, and let's just take a look at color at work. Let's get on in here. And again, we talk about this one's very complimentary. This one is literally all over the place. Frog Design, gotta love what they do. But when we get in here and we start looking at analogous is very much, I'm going to follow one color to the next all the way around. And typically speaking, that's when we look at the color wheel, we have to take into account, like, all the colors are side by side. So like yellow, green, dark green. Well, it's like a yellow, green, blue, green. So it's moving around. When we come back over to this, I see a orange, I see a purple, I see a green, I see a blue. So this is not what I would consider to be an analogous scheme. It might be triadic in that, and it also has a hint of complementary in it, because that orange and the blue set across from one another. If this had a yellow, I could say yellow and purple set across from one another. So it's not quite complementary as well. So this would fall into that other category. It's not really, but it's definitely not analogous. Okay, certainly not monochromatic either. There's a lot of color here, but it is a bit of a. It does feel like they are basically pulling. They're pulling colors that they're using a similar tone. There's also a red in here that wasn't picked up, and they're using. You see that red pop in more down here as well. So, did we pick the purple? Yeah, we got the purple. All right. So again, lots of color here, but the color of action, the color that I click on, I see it, and that means I click on it. They're very fine to the purple. The purple is utilized throughout. The green is utilized everywhere here. Here, it's, they're using a lot of different colors. But here, linked, noted, reviewed, announced, like these things have, here they're using color more for organization. Okay. And yes, it's all something that you can act upon. Here, it's very much the red, anything that's associated with the red has action associated with it, and here it's that dark blue. But good job there overall. Let's go ahead and flip over to the apply constraints. So here, for those not familiar with this exercise, Eve's basically been given this design and said, there's a color scheme associated with this. It's your job to now colorize this in a way that represents what a functional app would look like. And what we've gotten here is pretty good in that I think that obviously when we look at this is the Explore page, and you've decided to use the green to indicate which of these four have been selected. So that this compass, and it makes sense, Explore and the compass are likely related, but when we're on that compass, when we're on that Explore page, the compass is illuminated. If I switched over to chat and I tapped here, this color would move over. So I think you've done a very good job of identifying how to properly leverage this nav bar, and that's something that I think is very important for us to remember as we're moving into our interface design. Is something's always active. Are we indicating where the hell we are through the usage of color or tone? You align. You can do a lot of things to indicate where you're at, but you can't use this everywhere. It has to be very targeted. You've used the purple here for Fevzi. Fevzi, by the way, good friend of mine. Fevzi is in purple, which tells me that this must be associated with a particular, like it's here with posts. So I'm guessing that all other posts would probably have the purple. So it's more of, you're using it more for organization, which is fine. Here you've utilized the green for labels, which again is fine. We've got Explore up here, and that's in the same green as the selected element. And then I've got this dollar indicator here that's also in the green. I think it's fine. I do wonder what would happen. I didn't challenge you on this, so I'm not gonna ding here. But what happens to this if I tap that monetary indicator? What occurs? Does it change color? Does it pop up on a new screen? These are the things I want you thinking about as you're using your color, because I see this color and I'm like, oh, it's the same color as that. This must mean it's active, perhaps. And there's nothing saying you had to put a color there. You could have left it just the way it was. You chose to put a color there, and that's fine. We just need to be thinking about, okay, what happens when I tap that? Here, you've decided to, this is dark mode, and you've done something very similar with the green. Oddly enough, same green, okay. And this is a bit of a game where, the green looks dark over here on the light background. It looks light over here on the dark background, and it's something I want you to realize as you're going through and colorizing these screens, that your usage of the color can stay the same even if the user has switched modes on their device. And a lot of devices, they have a dark mode, and if your application has a dark mode that is set up for it, it will switch based on what the device settings are. Device browsers, regardless of what you feel about dark mode, a lot of people see it as, oh, that's a trendy thing. A lot of people will use their devices in low light conditions. A lot of people look at their devices for a long time, so it is beneficial for people to have that available to them. Also, you decided to flip this around from being white on green to a dark, picking up the background, and I think that's fine. The purple here, frankly, I think works a little better on the dark background than it does on the white, but let's check that out. Okay, so I'm going to come over here to Stark, and we're going to do check contrast. And, oh, well, that's not going to work very well if I don't have anything selected. So let's go ahead and do that. So select 1, select 2. And I think I've... Did I just select the whole thing? Oh, you can only check colors, not gradients or bitmaps. I think that image there is messing with it. Yeah, I got to get inside. So let's just check it over here. Oh, and of course it's the location thing, which is a pain. I'm not gonna lie. I don't like the fact that I have to constantly move this around, and now it's doing that because I need 2 things selected. Oh, and I can't ungroup it because of, yeah. Okay, well, let's just do this. Stark is choking on this for some reason. And I think, I do believe it's that image. I'm just dragging it out for a second. I'll come back to it, don't worry. Well, I took the, boy, Stark is really not liking this. I wonder why. Haven't had it fight like this. Sure your layer. Okay, I gotta see my frame. I gotta see my layers over here. Okay. Trending post. So I'm just gonna come up here. That's weird. That's a frame. No, it's not a frame. Maybe that's the problem here. Let's frame selection. Okay. So it's saying that contrast isn't proper, but I think it is actually. I actually believe that it is. I just think that it's fighting the fact that this image is in it. So I'm gonna do this, and we're just gonna do it like this. Man, what is... Okay, I'm confused because I don't really think there's a bitmap left in there. Sorry. So we're going to come over here and check this frame. Stark is. I wonder if I need to restart Figma. It's throwing some errors that I haven't seen it throw before. So I'm pretty happy with the combination that you have here. Actually, I know one way I can just do this really fast is you have this over here, and I know weird. I mean, it's the same color. Let's just grab these and not quite. So we really need it to be this 4.5. So the question there is, what can you do? You can't use the purple. Although I am happy that we find, cannot that gradient there. The one of the things that you could do, I believe, is I think you can come in here and potentially look at like the green, or you know what, you don't have to get fancy with it. You could just do the white, and it's not really a white. It's like an off gray, but this I know is going to not throw an issue with Stark. And it's still in the same. Yes, I've got it. Something's up. I must have a restart issue because it keeps throwing that error. So, although it could be just the fact that this is not a framed selection. So now let's try it. Nope. All right. Anyway, my point is, if this purple's not working, which is just off, there's nothing saying that you can't just put it in white. Don't outsmart yourself on issues like this. This is perfectly legible. This could, you don't have to use color here. Keep in mind, I'm not sure if I could, is the intention that I could click on Febsy and it's telling me that it's clickable? If that's the case, and maybe it's taking me to a whole list of Febsy posts, I guess. But I'm thinking about it more from an interface standpoint. What screen am I on? What's selectable up here? Another thing to think about is, here, is there well, it's showing stroke, but I'm not seeing the stroke on it. Let's just change. Okay, it is there. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't seeing a stroke on it, but now I see it. Now I was thinking we would go with that. But the idea here is that, you need some sort of delineation between the two. So that's something to keep an eye on. Overall, I thought this was pretty good, though. You're indicating current state. This is passing, but not to the degree that I'd like it. Just simplify. Don't try to outsmart. And I think you're pretty much ready to push on, though. So anyway, that said, I'm going to take a slight momentary break. I will be right back. So don't go anywhere. And then we'll come back over here and we'll take a look at Busy Bus when I get back. 1 second. Haha. Haha, I've returned. All right, so Tedral has submitted a series of screens for BusyBus. And BusyBus, this is a project that I wrote for another boot camp somewhere else. Name shall not be mentioned. And the impetus here is that I believe she's done some she's overhauled this a bit. So I'm looking for, actually, okay, yeah, Chris, break this, so I'm on the right pages. I'm just curious. I just kind of want to see where this has come from. And it looks like overall this is kind of similar. Yeah, there's a similar feel to this, but it says, Chris, break this. And teal or gray, what's better? You know, what's oddly enough, we just had a conversation about this. You just saw me review Eve's color for navigation project she's working on, and you know, I said don't outsmart yourself. I go with gray because, you know, from an accessibility standpoint, this is always going to win. From a usage standpoint, it's not like I'm clicking on stop and that's going to like refilter everything by a stop, or I'm going to click on this and it's going to, like, I would just simplify it. I would simplify it. And same thing down here. Like, you know, I think my bus is selected, but, you know, the tones here are so close. You know, so there's, luckily it's underlined. I can tell what your intention is because it's underlined. But the only reason I can tell what your intention is because the underline. I can't really tell from the rest of it. So something to think about there. Okay, let's see here. You've got some other questions. Arrival or ETA? Well, let's think about it. Arrival is to your location, not to where you're going. So I think arrival's fine. I don't necessarily think that you know, here's the thing. If you're worried about space, go with the option that's always going to give you the ability to display without having. You don't want two options, you only want one. So I would say that if that's a concern, ETA is your solution. If that's not a concern, arrival is your solution, okay? And I only say that because there may be people out there that don't know what ETA is. It's not as clear from a language perspective. But I would definitely make those all black. I would go with that version over there. Color code or no? The answer I have for you is no. And here's why. This is specific to bus lines. Okay. Every time you change every time you change a bus, and this, think of Orlando. All right, you're in Orlando. Every time that you have a new bus route, you're going to have to come up with a new color. Okay. Some cities have hundreds, if not thousands, of bus lines. Very few cities have less than 12. And the reason I say 12 is you have roughly about 12 colors on the color wheel that you can easily distinguish from one another. Okay? By the time you get to 24 colors, it's very hard to tell two apart from one another unless they're significantly further apart. And my worry with color coding is that it creates this problem. For trains, maybe you can do trains. But overall, I really think that I would stay with numbers and letters and not colors, specifically for buses. Trains, it's a little more in the air. Let's keep looking. Does the blur work here? Okay. So the blur does work to a degree. I do think that the other thing that I would look at, yeah, and you've now got this reach issue as well. So phones are getting bigger. Okay. A lot of times, what you would have here is instead of having this up at the top, you would have a circle here at the bottom. Okay. And you would then have this basically trigger off the bottom. So if you can imagine, a trigger coming up from the bottom, like I hit the button and it triggers up from the bottom instead of having to reach up here from the top. And this is the design paradigm that wasn't always there. It's really come on strong since the iPhone 10, which has been out for a couple of years now. What's funny is actually Apple started this. I'm gonna try to get at the trigger so I can. Okay, so Apple started this design paradigm where if you do not tap but you lightly touch it, it will lower the entire screen. And for a long time, I thought it was just a bug. It's like, why is this happening? And it's so that you can get to these controls that are at the top. Okay. And if you have an iOS device, I'd encourage you to pull it out and tap it. Don't click it, tap it twice, and it lowers that interface down. And it's because they're trying to solve for this issue, the access to these top controls. Google has always had that bottom centered navigation, and it's ultimately been something that the industry has grown toward because the phones just keep getting bigger. In a world where the phone has a constrained size, the Apple design with navigation elements at the top was fine. As the phone has gotten larger, it's just extremely hard. Even for my hand, it's extremely hard to get to some of these corners. That upper left-hand corner is basically inaccessible. And I'm not saying I have a huge hands or anything. My hands are like, I don't know, let's see here. You know what? It's so sad. I can't even make my politically tinged size of hand joke, which I shouldn't make those jokes anyway. That's just rude. People have small hands. But for people who have small hands, the Google approach is smarter. Now, let's go back and talk about something else related to this. One thing that a lot of people will do is it won't just be the blur. It will also be this concept of multiplying down to darken that background. Okay? So you not only blur it, but you also dim it down. That way it knocks it to the background. Okay? And you don't have to actually dim it down. You could go the other way too with it, and you could just say, I want to pass through, but I'm going to say 50%, and you knock it back by making it lighter. So you can make it lighter, you can make it darker. Most people will make it darker, simply because that's the paradigm that we've kind of been using for a while. But when you look at that versus not looking at it, you can see it very fast. It puts the focus on that calendar. But again, for you, I would look at this bottom launch tray, and this is something that comes more from material design. So I'm going to try to. Hey, material design, bottom navigation. Come on, load. So navigation bars, and this isn't really the tray that I'm looking for. Navigation drawer, that's what I'm looking for. And so often it's like being able to think about the terms. Now, navigation drawer, the way that it's defined, bottom drawer. Okay, so we're looking for bottom drawer, and it's this concept that something's going to come up from the bottom, and I'm going to be able to utilize it. And again, app bars bottom. App bar provides, and here it is. You get the button. And you can see that there's documentation for iOS and Android and web. Oh, actually, web is planned, so it's forthcoming. But the whole point is to give people easy. Here it is. The bottom app bar is easy to reach from a handheld position on a mobile device, and it's essentially a big circle. Now you can have this circle, and actually, okay, so here's one where it's in the corner. You can use it without the floating action button. Floating action button was the word that I'm looking for, and floating action button is right here. Here is the floating action button. You click it, and you could say button if you wanted it to. But essentially it is this. Okay? And you click it, and it pulls up information from the bottom. Here it is used in maps, although you don't want two of them. Can't have them on multiple sizes. You can have multiple per page, but most of them are down here in the corner. You don't want notifications and things like that. So it talks about placement here, edges, not multiple. You can put icons in them. Try not to put things like trash cans, like make them something that you would destroy. So here we're gonna just play this one. You can kind of see what happens. Here it's been used to simply say, oh, I want to add something. It slides over. Yes, you can spring load these to have older elements in them, although you can get kind of out of control with that. So anyway, I would look at a floating action button specifically for this. I would go floating action button instead of the check mark up here, and then I would spring that out and pull up that navigation tray from the floating action button. That is how I would fix that. But if you have questions, let me know. I'd love to help out there, but I do think that's and you kind of have that paradigm already happening here. So it kind of matches, it's like you're playing into that. Like these designs and this design, if you went with the floating action button, would be similar. So in many ways, I would look at ways to basically change these screen, bring this into a line with your navigation tray treatment here, and then flip these around to match. So that would elevate this quite a bit. Okay. All right. So that's Tegel. That's Eve. It is nice to have a discussion about color. That we're talking about Eve's navigation work, and then Tegel is right there doing something very similar in a very different project. But it's nice to see that at work. Actually, Tegel, I would focus on the flipping of the navigation. I think that's the biggest thing, and it's because the design that you have is the design that you have worked for phones like 2018 and prior, 2017 and prior. the larger these things get, and the fact that they're going buttonless now, which means they have a greater reach area, means that that bottom nav is going to be more of a modern concern moving forward. And I think that if you can fix that tray issue and fix that floating action button, or bring that floating action button into play, I think that you're going to have a much stronger solution overall. So that's where I would take it. We have Rebecca in here. I'm going to try to get Rebecca's content brought to light here. Let's go ahead and jump on in. I normally have this stuff pulled up, but I do apologize. So let's see here. Okay, I'm trying to protect it here a bit. Okay, sorry. Sitemap is approved. For the wireframes, should I focus on getting content design first and then see how? Okay. And then see how to get some animations in. So from the perspective of the animations, I think it's very difficult to begin designing animations without knowing what content is actually going to be in here. And like right now, so there's a request a demo page, there's a blog, there's a chime, and then so I think that, like some animations, like if you wanted to come up with like a hover animation that like, okay, so as you go over each of these, like the background zooms in and maybe it changes, the overlay changes color. I think you can design something like that where you're not particularly heavily influenced by a lot of content forthcoming. So I think that there's areas where you can pick a shot and say, okay, here I have a limited amount of information. I'm going to kind of spend some time designing a possible animation to work for this shape. I think you're fine. Over here, where it's like the about or news, and like you don't necessarily know. There's a lot of content coming, and when there's a lot of content coming, I think I would focus on, okay, let's get the content in and see what we have. So it's very much a situation where if you have a handle on the content, feel free to go ahead and jump into animations. If you don't have a handle on the content and you think that it may be varying in size, I'd focus on getting that content. So you can kind of give them a little bit, because I know that they're on the flashy animation thing, and that's fine. But you can give them a little bit, saying, yeah, here's what I'm thinking about. Here's what I think we do with this. I'm not sure about the content over here, so I left that alone while we wait for that to come in. So it's a bit of a give and take, okay? If they say, oh, we've definitely got to have the animation, I do think that there's some things that you can do. Like they have this meet the team bit, and meet the teams are always, you get a general idea of what's coming there. So I think that you could do a little more with that. You could maybe create something for the contact page, although I think your real issue here is the homepage. Like product, about, blog, content, that's the nav, great. What else is coming on the homepage? So what I've just been highlighting here are things that are coming off that nav. So you could design little bits of it in advance to kind of give them a sense of where you're trying to go. Let's go ahead and look at some of the wireframes here. I'm not seeing anything here. Okay, so this, I think that's the start, and this is the, okay, yeah. These are the examples. So I think that you don't have anything here yet. I'm just gonna go back. Um, yeah, as far as the homepage, you're asking me about homepage. Um, I really think that I would take this the route of I would take this the route of priority guides. You know, we have that priority guides exercise, which if you're trying to get into that, that would be over here. I'm going to jump out of this. Let's go into UX. Let's just go down courses and curriculum. We'll go to UX, and then we'll go to content for UX, and then we'll just zoom down here. So this is priority guides, and for oh, sorry, that's not priority guides. Oh, and I closed it. I suck. Sorry. Let's just do this one more time. Oh, I hate it. I've got that cached thing. Sorry, I do this to myself. So we get in here, we go down to content for UX. Let's get all the way to the bottom. So priority guide, the whole point of priority guides is to produce 3 iterations of the content for the story map. You created in the previous chapter. You don't have a story map, so you're really focused on, okay, what content have they told me? What questions have I asked? And here with priority guides, you'll go in, you'll duplicate this, but you're going to make 3 separate cuts of that homepage. All right. The first cut is going to be, okay, there's a nav bar, and there's a hero unit, and there is a section about cell-wise, and there's a section about the rollout plan and how it works. Okay, the second cut is where I go in and I basically say, okay, the hero, what's the tagline? How much how much information is going in up here? How does it work? Okay, what are the steps for how it works? And in crafting that information, you begin to get a picture of what the homepage looks like. The problem that I believe you have right now is, like, you really have no idea what this homepage looks like. Now, you do have, if I recall, an early version of this site. So with that said, you may have some starting material to work with. I might extract that out and like consider that to be maybe it's version 2 of the homepage on the priority guide, and then your job is to make a version 3 that carries that forward. But that's really what I see, and from there, I think that, you know, if you can get a conversation going with the team that you're working with about, okay, here's what you had, here's what I'm envisioning. You wanna see if where you're envisioning is the right direction, because if it's not, it's fine. It's fine, and it is fine for them to say that's not what we were thinking. Great, awesome. We've had this conversation early. What were you thinking? Because unless you're getting their input, you could head off in the wrong direction for way too long. Okay? So I want you to do the legwork of going back to that initial page, scraping that information out, getting a priority guide going, and then like saying, okay, well, this is what you had. This is where we could carry it, or this is what I was thinking we could do to carry it forward. And then you can start worrying about animations and things like that. But you can't do that until you know what the content really is. Okay? And if the content is shifting, the animations don't matter. All right? So that's my 2 cents on this. I do think that there's some spots down further down where you can do some animation work to kind of get your feet wet with it, to be honest with you, because I know you haven't been doing a lot of that yet. But I really do think that, you know, for this homepage, which is kind of the thing that steers the rest of it, I think you have to get your hands wrapped around what they want to do, before you start working on animations. If you had to do something, maybe you can work on an animation for like the hero unit. Maybe it's the cell phones coming in or something. You're closer to that situation than I am, but I think that having that initial version of the homepage, it doesn't have any of the links off of it yet, but that gives you an idea of some groundwork that you can build on. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, just checking looks like we've got everybody for feedback loop. Looks like, yeah, good day overall. I really love this. I absolutely, ow, bit my tongue. I got so excited. I absolutely love seeing the work that you folks are performing. It looks like you're all, you're all heading in slightly different directions, but that doesn't mean that they aren't interesting directions. So, Rebecca, flesh out the initial homepage. See what additional where they were wanting to go with that. What's like the next cut of that the more robust one. Tedral. Let's flip that navigation around to where it's floating action button and navigation trays from the bottom, so that you're addressing the larger phone issue. Eve, I really think that overall you did a pretty good job. We've discussed kind of some of the minor issues that were there, but I really think you're like heading on into form design now. So ladies and gentlemen, Chris Courtney here, New Pragmatic, and I will chat with you all again tomorrow. Take care.